So as we learned in our Excel lesson number 6, one of the most powerful features in Excel is the ability to calculate numerical information using formulas. Just like a calculator, Excel can add, subtract, multiply, and divide. In merchandising math, we use very simple math. We use addition, subtraction, division, multiplication. Exactly what the basic formulas can do for us in Excel. However, we do need to know our basic order of operations in order to get our formulas for merchandising math to calculate things in the correct mathematical order. So this particular lesson is going to go over more complex formulas, but when I say complex, please know that these are still very basic formulas. If you're interested in following along, there is a Excel Lesson 7 practice worksheet. It's going to have 3 tabs this time. 2 of them we are using in this lesson, and then there is the actual assessment tab as well. So you can open it up and you can use it as we work through this, or you can just wait and do the assessment at the end. So Excel calculates all of our formulas based on our mathematical rules around order of operations. You learned this in elementary school. Depending on your teacher, it may have been PEMDAS, it may have been PEDMAS, it may have been BEDMAS, whatever the acronym was, this is what we're talking about. And Excel assumes order of operations when it is calculating things. So remember, we do need to remember our order of operations because you are going to have to order things for Excel. So the first thing that will be calculated by Excel is anything within the parentheses. Then it will calculate any exponents. Again, we do not use exponents in merchandising math, so you can kind of ignore the exponents part of it. Then it's going to go through our multiplication, division, and then finally it will do our addition and subtraction. So the first thing that when we enter a formula into Excel, or just in general, remember your order of operations, anything within the parentheses, anything within the brackets. In this case, there's only one thing in the brackets. It's 6 minus 3. That is the first thing that gets calculated. So we have 3, right? The next thing that will be calculated is any exponents. I'm just going over this so that you remember your order of operations. Our exponents in this case is, we have 1, 2 to the exponent 2, which is 2 times 2, which is equal to 4. So that would be the second thing that would get calculated. So we are now at the point where we have 10 plus 3 divided by 4 times 4 minus 1. So now you are going to do your multiplication and your divisions, or your division and your multiplication, depending on the order that you learned this as a child. It doesn't matter, you just have to do it in the order in which it comes first, right? So in this case, our division sign comes before our multiplication sign, so we are going to take 3 and divide it by 4 before we do that number times by 4. So 3 divided by 4 is 0.75. So we've done our division, and next is our multiplication. So we're going to multiply that by 4, which means we're going to take 0.75 and we're going to multiply that by 4, which gives us 3. And now we're left with our addition and subtraction. And again, we're going to work from left to right. So we're going to go 10 plus 3 minus 1 is equal to 12. Very quick reminder of how order of operations works so that you know when you are entering in formulas where to put your parentheses particularly, or your brackets. that is the thing that in merchandising math that is the most important, is where am I putting the parentheses and what am I telling Excel to do. Excel will make some assumptions about order of operations, but not always. And so you do want to pay very close attention to your order of operations and where you put your parentheses. So in this example today, we are going to demonstrate how Excel uses order of operations to solve a more complex formula. What I can tell you in merchandising math, the most complex that we ever are going to have is we might have some numbers that we need to add together or multiply, and then another set of numbers that we need to add and multiply, and then we're going to take those two numbers and we're going to divide them together. We're going to multiply them by 100 or something like that. So that's the extent of how, in quotation marks, complicated it gets, but we still have to remember our parentheses and use it as necessary. So here in the example that you see up on the screen, we want to calculate the cost of sales tax for a catering invoice. So we know we have 3 lines that we need to add together, and then we need to multiply that total by the sales tax, which is 7.5%. So our sales tax is going to get calculated into cell D6. So I've gone to D6 and I've told Excel, I want you to add these 3 numbers together, and then I want you to multiply that total by 7.5%. Now I can do this in a variety of different ways in terms of the percentage, but in this example, I use my brackets. You can see here, I have parentheses around the 3 numbers that are going to get added together first. Then I have my asterisk, and then I've times it by 0.075. The other thing that I could have typed here is times it by 7.5%, and it will automatically recalculate that as a number for me. So anytime you have the percent sign in a cell, it automatically does the conversion back to a decimal and does that calculation for you, which will be pretty important to remember as we progress through our merchandising math labs. Excel follows the order of operations. It calculates everything in the parentheses first. It then is going to multiply it by my sales tax, and then it's going to give me a total of tax for that order of $20.56. So now I know what the total tax was for those 3 line items. It's really very important to pay attention to the order of operations when we're creating a formula in Excel. If you don't, Excel is not calculating your results for you accurately. In our example that we just did, if the parentheses were not included, Excel is going to do your multiplication first. So it's going to take that D5, which is $159.60, and it's going to multiply it by 0.75. And then it's going to take that value and it's going to add it to 68.70, and it's going to then add that to 45.80, which you end up with a wildly different number. So it is very key to pay attention to the parentheses. You will need to do that a lot in this class. So let's look at this in another way. In the example below, we're going to use cell references along with numerical values to create a formula that's going to create a subtotal for our catering invoice. The formula will calculate the cost of each menu item first, and then add our values together. So what I need to tell Excel to do is I'm going to select the cell that's going to contain the formula. So what am I? C5. And then I'm going to enter in my formula. In our example, we start with equals, and we say what we want to do is we want to take the unit price and we want to times it by the quantity. So I know how much money I generated from this line. Right? So I've typed in B3 times C3. I also want to take this unit price and multiply it by the number I sold. So I've taken B4 and multiplied it by C4. And because Excel is going to follow my order of operations for me, it's going to do this multiplication. It's going to do this multiplication first, B3 times C3. Then it's going to do B4 times C4, and then it's going to add those two numbers together because it's following our basic order of operations. You can add parentheses to any equation you want to make it easier to read. In this particular case, it's not going to change the number because it's a fairly straightforward formula, and Excel knows that it needs to multiply B3 by C3 before it adds that to the product of B4 times C4. But oftentimes I like to add in those parentheses just so that I can keep track of my formula, and that in my brain I'm keeping track that I'm doing my formulas correctly. So it's not going to change the value, it's not going to change the calculation, it just is organizationally going to make it easier for you. Okay, so that's really honestly the extent of how complex formulas are going to get in merchandising math. You will use parentheses quite a bit when you are doing division and when you are going from a dollar to a percentage is when you'll see it quite a bit, and we will try to point those out in our exercises in class, our homework assignments, our labs, etc. So at this point, we are through with our lessons for Excel. So now if you haven't already opened it, you need to open up Lesson 7 Practice Workbook and do the Lesson 7 assessment, which is the last tab in the workbook. There's just 3 things you need to do. It should be very quick and fast, and then save it following the instructions here and upload it, and you will be done with your lessons for Excel.